The WAFB Podcast Network is sponsored by Neighbors Federal Credit Union.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to Game Time with John Eads. Super pleased to be back with you. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here, WAFB, and the show as a whole. We are into a new year, and we've got a lot of topics to discuss. I think what I want to start with as we're starting the offseason for LSU football is why I think this offseason is different from the others in Brian Kelly's time at LSU. He's entering his fourth year now as the head coach with the Tigers, 10-win season in 2022, 10-win season in 2023, and then this past year, obviously, an 8-4 regular season. They win the Texas Bowl, get to 9-4. It was disappointing because I think that a lot of people were anticipating year 3 being the year where Kelly finally gets over the hump, and LSU at the very least makes it into the 12-team college football playoff. I know that's certainly what my prediction was coming into the season, but for different reasons, LSU was on its way there, collapsed midseason, righted the ship, but by then it was too late, and they end up finishing with 9 wins and a victory in kind of another meaningless bowl game. But I think that there's a lot of momentum with this program right now, and I think that the actions that they've shown in the past month and a half or so since the Bryce Underwood decommitment before Vanderbilt, and since ending the season with the win against Oklahoma in the regular season finale, should give you confidence that this offseason is different. And I know that it's easy to stand here and say, well, wasn't this the talking point last offseason heading into 2024? Wasn't this what we were all saying heading into the 2023 season? They had momentum. They had a good recruiting class. They lost a couple of inexplicable games. That shouldn't happen again, right? I know it's easy to say that it's going to be the same old. I'm going to give you reasons as to why I think 2025, when it's all said and done, we're just in the first couple days, really the first week of the new year. When it's all said and done, I think year 4 is going to be the biggest year yet under BK in his time at LSU. And dare I say, it might be a memorable season, one that you put right up there with 2007 and 2003 and many other seasons mixed in between, before, and after that. So the biggest reason why I think this team will be different, will finally accomplish what everybody hypothesizes and thinks it should be capable of, is what they've done in the transfer portal. I don't know what the strategy was the last couple of years. I think that Kelly valued the transfer portal, and LSU went out and got some really good players, some of the highest ranked transfer portal guys you could get. But for different reasons, most of the people they brought in have not worked out. They've come in and just been backups. They've joined the team and then were kicked off the team. They transferred in, didn't do a whole lot, and then since have transferred out. There's been a couple that have been diamonds in the rough, so to speak, that have stuck, been instant impact and very valuable contributors. But for the most part, the transfer portal has not worked out for LSU. They've lost more than they've gained in some instances. But right now, as I stand before you, LSU has the number 1 transfer portal class, depending on what service you look at. I think most services have LSU at number 1. I know 27sports.com does. They got 8 4-star transfers and 5 3-star transfers. Now, how did this all come about? Well, when Bryce Underwood decommitted from LSU kind of unexpectedly and has since committed and signed with Michigan, they had a lot of money wrapped up in him and what they were going to give him, and a lot for him in NIL when he actually enrolled and started playing at LSU. Now that that money has been freed up and there's a lot more in the collective, LSU's had the opportunity to go and shell out a lot of dough to some of the best players in the portal and bring in, almost like the NFL, free agents that will come and make this football team better, will produce wins and return on investment in the future. They've had the opportunity to do that this offseason. I don't know if they've had that necessarily the past 2, because LSU has recently really started to up its game in the NIL space. So here's the quick history of how LSU's done in the transfer portal, just to put this point to bed. 2022, they had the number 3 class. Good. 2023, they had the number 4 class. Names like Jaden Daniels are mixed into those 2 classes, and other guys that have been success stories. But for the most part, the transfer portal's kind of been a bust for this program in the past couple of years, because maybe they haven't had the resources to go and get the actual instant impact guys that you need to get out of the portal that will come in and win you football games. I think now they do. 2024, by the way, they had the number 43 transfer portal class. So I think that they relied more heavily on their high school guys and developing from within and brought in a couple of transfers. But I mean, nobody from this past year's transfer portal class really came in and dominated. You know, Gio Paez, JVR Suggs, they were kind of rotational guys. CJ Daniels was supposed to be like maybe their wide receiver 1, and he was in reality their wide receiver 3 or 4, and he's since transferred again to Miami. So they didn't really hit on the portal last year. But again, it goes back to my prior point. They haven't invested and gone all in, if you will, at the poker table on the portal like they are this year. And based on the things that Brian Kelly is saying, just words from within the program, it seems like, you know, they're not going all in on 25 as if to say it's going to be like 2020 when you won the 19 national championship and then the program had 39 scholarship players the next year. But more of like, hey, you know, people are starting to get skeptical. What are we really doing here? Are we here to win 9 or 10 games? Are we here to win meaningless bowl games? Or are we here to win national championships? Is this why I left Notre Dame? I mean, Brian Kelly at a certain point, he's got to take it personal, right? Notre Dame tonight, as I'm recording this, is playing in the college football playoff semifinal, 2 wins away from a national championship. Let's not forget that's why he left Notre Dame and came to LSU, not only for the big paycheck, but to prove that he can win at a program where there's really no academic restrictions, where he can bring in the best recruits. And to this point, he's not done that. Marcus Freeman, on the other hand, has done that. And that's why the Fighting Irish are in the position they're in now. So I think that Brian Kelly is starting to finally take it personally. Like, hey, we got to do something here. You know, I don't want to be known as Mr. 10-win Brian. I want to win a national championship. That's what I came to LSU to do, to prove that I could do, to cement my status as an elite coach. So here are some of the guys they brought in the transfer portal to help in that quest, if you will. They've got the number 1 defensive lineman transfer, Patrick Payton. They've got the number 2 defensive back transfer, Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech. On the offensive line, they got 2 in the top 15, Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech and Josh Thompson, who's committed but has not signed at this point with LSU as a transfer. So wait and see on that. Other than that, though, I mean, they've got Jack Pyburn. He's a top 15 defensive line transfer from Florida. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. Barry and Brown, both in the top 10 wide receiver transfer portal rankings. And then you got a guy named Jakeem Jackson from Florida who plays corner. So they're bringing in several top 15 transfer portal guys, many of those in the top 10 as well. And it's at the positions you need. You need help on defensive line. You obviously need help in the secondary. The Texas Bowl proved that. You're losing a lot on the offensive line, so you're bringing in a couple guys there. And, it couldn't hurt to have even more wide receiver depth because you really can't have enough. And you've got your quarterback, so why not give him some weapons? So that's point 1 as to why I think 2025 is going to be different as I look at it and envision things in January, looking ahead to the spring and the summer, and then obviously when the season comes back in the fall. The second umbrella, or the second strand of this umbrella, I should say, is who you're bringing back. I think it's a little bit different from last year. Yes, you saw Garrett Nussmeier and some other youngsters in the bowl game prove that they could step up and play a game. Now you've got a whole season's worth of evidence to prove if these guys can really play or not. Garrett Nussmeier can play. Over 300 yards in the bowl game, 3 touchdowns without Kyron Lacey, without Mason Taylor, without his bookend starting offensive tackles. He still proved he can go out there and function and move this offense. Not to mention this season, he passed for over 4,000 yards with 29 touchdowns. That's quietly one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best seasons, I should say, an LSU quarterback has ever had. Additionally, Caden Durham led the team with 13 carries for 60 yards in the bowl game, but was great all season long. Those numbers don't really do him justice. 750, 5 per carry, 6 touchdowns. A very promising true freshman season that he could certainly build on. Receiving-wise, you're losing a lot. You lose a lot every year, though. LSU always has good receivers. Chris Hilton's coming back, though, and I know that we've beat this drum many times before. All right, it's finally Chris Hilton's time. But, I mean, you can't sit there and just scoff at what he did in the bowl game. 4 catches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. That is what Chris Hilton can be. The question is, can we see that for 12 games, an entire season, and not the first game and the last game of the season, or like 3 or 4? That's going to be his challenge. He was a 5-star recruit. He's from Zachary High School. He has yet to put it all together. He's got one more opportunity here in 2025. I think he's going to take it upon himself to make this the year that he finally puts it all together. And if he plays most games like he did in the Texas Bowl, I mean, watch out. LSU really could have used him this year. They might be playing in this game tonight against Penn State. Possibly, if he was playing this season. You never know. Not to mention Aaron Anderson, who led the team in receiving this year. 8 catches for 100 yards. He's your alpha dog. He's back. Ed Nakar alum has finally turned the corner and become what many thought he would be out of high school. Trey'Dez Green, 6 catches, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. Breakout game in the bowl. Many were curious to see what he really fit in at tight end, and Brian Kelly sung his praises leading into the bowl game. Of course, he was singing them after because Trey'Dez Green proved him correct. And I think the sky is the limit for what he can do, especially in 2025 with Nussmeier and this offense. That's the offense. Defensively, you've got some stalwarts coming back on that side of the ball too. Devon Keys, true freshman, showed out with the pick 6 in the bowl game, 6 tackles. West Weeks stepped in for his brother Whit when he went down with that injury, had 6 tackles. He's back next year. The point is, you have guys back that have proven they can play and can only get better. And it's on both sides of the ball. That wasn't really the case heading into this season, I don't think. Not at the most important positions on the football field. I think it can be different when you mix in the returnees and the guys you're bringing in the portal. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of depth there. And there's a lot of experience. And as of right now, your coaching staff is basically still intact. You lose Slade Nagel to Houston. He was your tight ends coach. He's now the OC at Houston. But besides that, you're not really losing anybody on this coaching staff. Everybody should be back, and you can even add in an assistant coach at special teams or tight ends. I mean, whatever you want to do in that respect. So it's different. You had a new OC last year. You had a new DC last year. There's more continuity from a player standpoint and a coaching standpoint. You had a lot of young players play in every game this year. Deshaun Spears at safety, Ahmad Bro at defensive line, PJ Woodland at corner, Gabriel Relaford at defensive end. So I just think that what we're looking at next year is potentially the deepest team Brian Kelly's had, and in turn the most talented team. When you mix in the guys that we've already seen, the guys we saw in the bowl game, and who they're bringing in the transfer portal. Now, back to let's bring this thing full circle. Back to the point I led off with about the portal. Has LSU had good portal classes since Kelly's been at LSU? Yes. I already mentioned it. 2 in the top 5 his first 2 years. These need to be hits. All these guys that you're dishing out thousands of, potentially millions of dollars to, they need to come in and be instant day one starters and impact players. Otherwise, this whole thing's not going to work, and it's just going to be a repeat of what we saw in 22 and 23. A good team that's not great. That's what they're trying to change this year, is that narrative. That LSU can't just be a pretty good team and also ran in the SEC. It could be a championship contender and a team that is firmly in the 12-team playoff every year. And I think, based on what Brian Kelly said, not just the words, the actions, though, 2025 can be that year, possibly. You can hypothesize and say what something could be all you want. Now they got to actually go and do it. But as of right now, as I'm looking at it, I'm impressed with what they've done in the portal. I'm impressed with what they've done from a team building standpoint, from a retention standpoint. Now we'll have to watch and see how the team progresses and grows during the spring and the summer. But I think this team has potential, and 2025 could be a big year. So we'll start the conversation there. That is not the end of the conversation, but we'll continue to talk about it as 2025 unfolds.